Happy New Year everyone, welcome to 2024. So I'm finally at the point where I've got the Herald's engine back. Got the bare block, bare head, most of the parts, and I'm just getting ready to put it all together. Before that, there's a lot of prep work to do. It needs to be painted, there's some bits need to be cleaned, still some bits need to be removed from the crankshaft. And I'm going to do a little bit of assembly after the floor repairs I did in the last video. So, let's get a bit of the interior put back in, and then engine time. Alright, so I thought the assembly order of this was probably interesting to see. I didn't want to try and film it when I took it apart because I really don't like drilling into here when the hood is down. Now this is actually a C-shaped channel, so you should be fine, but I don't want to risk the slipping and putting a drill through the hood. So I made it very difficult to get in there, let alone get a camera in there. Anyway, so our trim panels have 4 clips at that end. We just have to see if these actually go on for me because I only had 3 there, and I can't remember if that was because I only had 3 when I made the panels or because they didn't fit. I drilled the holes wrong. Anyway, so these will push into the B post. Okay, it wasn't not fit, it was didn't have. Then this bit goes over the top. So then this gets fixed in place with a rivet through a press stud. Corner piece. And finally, this one. Just take some little screws. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, then the seat back goes in. So with all the seat sides and trim in, this just hooks over that back rail. There. So this also rivets on, and I found I've had to buy quite long rivets to hold it because there's quite a thickness here. Because this is there's the piece of steel that forms the hood well, and then the fairly thick piece of steel that forms the top of the back of the seat. Then obviously vinyl. Okay, so that's in. There should also be, it's difficult to see, but anyway, between the side trims and the seat, there should actually also be some screws that hold the two things together. The bits of my seat back that they were supposed to go into have long since disintegrated, so I don't usually bother. Anyway, I'm going to chuck the rear seat in, then get everything covered up because it's time to have a look at the engine. I've got a cover over the Spitfire, covers over the bits of the Herald that aren't already completely filthy, and an engine on the bench. Now, it's had the top skimmed, clean it up, been bored out to 60 over. They've had to make me a custom rear thrust washer. It's been a couple of times through the cleaning tank. Head similarly, it's been skimmed, new valves. It already had, this is a second-hand head I got out of someone's shed, and it already had hardened valve seats in, so that's good. And it had been run with them, just the valves were worn. Or rather, the guides were worn. I'm not sure whether the guides were worn, so I replaced the valves too, whatever. Anyway, the thing I need to do now is get some paint on them, and the various other bits of engine that are kicking around. Problem is, the machinists have sprayed everything with oil, which is obviously good for making it not rust purposes, but might be able to see on the camera. Yeah, it's picked up all sorts of dirt, and obviously I want to give stuff a wire brush, get rid of any old paint and rust, which means I'm going to create a lot of debris that's then going to stick to all this oil. So then what I'm going to do is get the block on the engine stand, get it all cleaned down with brake cleaner, get all the oil off. Then I can put some WD-40 or similar on all of the surfaces that we need to protect, cylinder bores and so on, and give that a wipe in. So that's then going to give me surfaces that are not going to be quite so attractive to all sorts of crap. So when that's dry and got this bit of rust prevention on it, I'll take a wire brush to all the paint and get that ready for a fresh coat. Yeah, I've been generally very impressed with the work I've had done by this engine workshop, and in particular you can see they've numbered all the valves, so I've not got to worry about keeping them in order. I have got a nice little stand built, but I thought that was a particularly good piece of service. Anyway, I shall get on with some cleaning up. So still got a little bit of disassembly to do before I get on with painting. I'll get this seal out, so let's see how much that's going to fight. So the camera cut out while I was flailing at this, but it just, after I got two indents into it, it came out. So I can pull that off and get the gasket cleaned off, and then time to start painting stuff. So That should be everything cleaned up that needs painting right now. Had a couple of bits in the blast cabinet just to get around the edges where it's difficult to get anything else in. So I shall get on with some cleaning and masking and getting some paint on. Okay, so there we go. Everything painted up, unmasked. Needs a bit of drying time now. Got a couple of areas where it's bled through, but this comes off with thinners, so that's a little bit of a wipe and I'll be fine. I've had terrible trouble with some of these cans of VHT. Don't really know what's up there. Anyway, I'm going to let all this sit for a day or two, but I'm sure you're going to see what's going on just right now. Right, so the last kind of potentially messy or dirty job I've got to do before being able to start putting the engine together is manage to get the woodruff key out the crankshaft, because it wouldn't move before, and neither will the bushing where the gearbox main shaft rides. So, given that bit of squirt penetrating oil, I'm going to try and think of a way to pull on the bushing in here. Well, that was easier than I expected. So this is just a random tap. I think it's called BSP, British Standard Pipe. I wasn't too bothered about destroying this because they're cheap and I would have replaced it anyway. Okay, well, see if this one's as easy. So the idea here is the woodruff key is a half moon shape. So you should be able to bash down on one end and make it rotate. Unfortunately, this one is not moving. I'll just leave the penetrating fluid to hopefully do its job for a minute. Okay, I'm getting somewhere here. I've managed to twist it round. Just going to see if I can get any further with a bit of brass drift, or smaller brass drift. I've got it out. It fought absolutely all the way, and I don't know why. It doesn't really look like anything's... So nothing was burnt or damaged, but there is... There's perhaps a little bit of rust on the bottom of that key. Could be it. Anyway, fortunately the key looks to be fine. Otherwise...
Actually, it just seems to be an extremely tight fit. Okay, that's now going in and out like I think it should be, because it shouldn't be immovable. It should be tight, and obviously I'm going to need to get it on and off, like part of the engine build. So that does mean I can get ready to lay stuff out. So first thing I've got to do, got a brand new set of pistons. The rods have had new little end bushes fitted, so it's going to check the weights and that they're within the required range of one another. It's given in drams in the manual. Two drams for the piston variation and 4 for the common rod variation. And that works out as 3.5 grams and 7 grams. And then if we got any imbalance, we can match up a piston with a rod to make the whole assembly, or each assembly, as balanced as possible. Though one of these is missing one of the locators, I think, so... Yeah. So we're missing that. So we're missing one of these. Unfortunately, I have managed to obtain one at an extortionate price. Had to buy a scrap rod for 15 quid to get this. Anyway. Right, so number 1, 6.5 grams. 2, 6.18. So that's 3 at 621 and 4 at 612. So we're just in. Pistons are light enough I can do my slightly more precise with the coffee scales. heaviest can go with our lightest rod. To our lightest, the heaviest rod. Does. Actually, I can't add because that gives us a 9 gram difference. Well, I've just reweighed them all with the scales actually on the bench top, and I get consistent. See, this is the only one that I'm getting inconsistent result for from my previous measurements, and it brings it up to 616, which does put us in spec. Obviously I have been running with these rods for quite some time. I think that puts us in as consistent as we're going to get. What? So what we've got to do is check the gaps in the cylinder. So obviously this gets compressed and we have to have a space rather than being completely closed, because this is going to heat up, it's going to expand, and it needs room to expand into. What I'm also going to do, which I hadn't seen before, but I was advised this by the people who did the machining work for me, is that this edge should be just, so this sharp edge of the oil ring, of the piston ring, should be lightly flatted away, because otherwise you can get the ring running up and down the cylinder and scraping away with that sharp edge. And he said, the fellow I spoke to said, they've stripped engines where it's got that, lines up and down, and you can avoid that by just taking the corner off there. So I'll be doing that as well. Okay, so got all the rings laid out. Got some coffee. Got the spec, which is 12 to 22 thou for the 1360 and Mark III Spitfire, and this engine is those two things. So I'm just going to take a tiny file, just take away that corner. Then let's get checking the cylinder. So this is the ring that's, to start with, going to go in number 1 cylinder. It is marked top, just under my thumb there. So that's the way the top of the block, or the top of the block. Then we can take a piston and push it down so it's evenly in the bore. Start with 12 thou of the feeler gauge. It is not even close. That's about 8 at the moment. We've got to go up. So I just had a look in the manual, and it does recommend measuring closer to the top of the cylinder, though obviously with these being a new bore, they shouldn't really be tapered. Feels a bit like I'm making coffee again. Tamping my piston rings. Okay. So that doesn't make very much difference, which is kind of relieving, really. I think before changing anything, I'm going to measure everything else. Then maybe some are slightly tighter, some are slightly narrower. Can move things around rather than actually removing metal. So I'll get on and do that, and then we'll see what we've got. Right, so I've got all my initial measurements done. I think I'm measuring the right thing on the lowest rings, so the actual collars that keep the oil ring in place, and those need to be between 9 and 19 thou gap, so they're all fine. The others are mostly too tight, and I've just checked a couple in other cylinders and I'm getting consistent readings. So I'm going to have to slim some of these down, or rather widen the gap. So I should be able to do this by sticking a file in the vise and gently rubbing the ring up and down. So, at least 6 to do. Let's get on with it. So, my file, which obviously has 2 parallel faces, which means we can do this and file down the inner edges of this ring and keep them parallel. Oh, I don't like how this is holding. Okay, that's a bit better. Okay, so that first attempt took loads off. Be a bit more circumspect, I got lucky. So for that second one, I just did each edge individually rather than trying to do them both at the same time. And 3 short passes on each side, took 2 thou off, so brought it into spec, so that's just now 12 thou gap. I don't need to do that one at all. So I'm going to get on and do all the rest. So that's all the rings trimmed down to match the specifications. I think there's a little bit... Yes, I have a little bit more prep to do before I want to start actually assembling anything. I'm going to take out the plugs for this oil way and give it a clean out. And also clean around the some bit more paint off there. And start to put stuff in the block. So I've got the last bit of cleaning done, so this oil way, that's now washed out and sealed up again. I'm sure there's going to be a bit more paranoid wiping down and blowing through of stuff as we start to put stuff actually into the block. I'm going to call the assembly prep done here, and this video. So I'm probably going to get on straight now, right now, and start putting stuff together, but it seems a good break point. So thanks to everyone for watching, commenting, subscribing. I'll see you very shortly.